Hi there, John from Cape Town again, and I have been having such incredible conversations. I wanted to share them with as many people as possible. I've made a concerted effort this year to try and make more content, to try and help more people. And so this is just part of my mission for 2021 while we go through this transition that's really quite difficult for many people. One of the topics that really keeps coming up for me is reimagination. I made a video about it yesterday around resilience, reimagined. But I've also come across this term now, which is called the poverty of reimagination. It's almost like we are all very poor in our ability to think outside further than where we are right now. You know, we all doom scrolling through Twitter or any Facebook or CNN or YouTube. And it's always about the sort of apocalypse that's coming, the problems that are happening in the world. If you're watching Black Mirror, which is something I've refused to watch because it imprints a future that's dark and not something I want to be living, where we're exposed to only old white men being CEOs of companies that are ruthless in the way they go about it, or that we have to move to Mars because there's such a horrific Earth collapse that's happening around us. This is all the news we have and all the information that we gathered or exposed to. And what this does, it actually makes us very poor in our ability to reimagine. And so as part of my year and reinventing myself, I engaged with a new coach. His name is Kevin Horsley, and I'll tag him in the video. He is a grand master world champion of memory. And I've only had 1 or 2 sessions with him so far, and he has blown my mind because he says that a lot of our lives are just based on memories, whether they're past or future, and how close you bring them to how you make your decisions. So if we are always looking through a filter of our imagination about the doom scrolling that we're doing, what do you think we're going to create? A poor future, a poverty-enriched future, or if that even makes sense, a poor future. And so what we have to do is we have to rethink our ability to reimagine. And it's that process of putting front and center the filter of a new world, of a new possibility, of our ability to reimagine what could be, where that starts becoming the anchor points for things that we start looking for. And then I was at the interview with Mark Sham and Eric Kruger, my 2 very good friends, and Eric's on my podcast. We're on the podcast together, The Expansive. And in that, Eric was talking about something called sequencing, which I thought was really great because the way he was explaining it was we go through a process of designing the world we want and then sequencing backwards. And I just got off a call with Copenhagen Institute for Future Studies, and one of the exercises we were thinking about was what are the short-term consequences of long-term thinking? You see, most corporates are stuck in what are the short-term or long-term consequences of short-term thinking, which is a horrific world that we're living in. Because we've got such short-term addiction that we always have to be in quarterly profits, monthly profits, and survival, the long-term consequences we don't even think about. But what if we switch that around and say, what are the short-term consequences of long-term thinking? And then how do we sequence it backwards? So if I want to become a triathlete, what do I have to do? The sequencing backwards, what are the short-term results of that is I have to change my diet, I have to train much harder, I have to engage into a new world where I'm an amateur, I have to learn all these things from scratch, which is always a bit daunting. But ultimately, we have to reimagine first, a world that's better for all of us, not just for us alone. And this is really what Future Next was about, is how do we reimagine the world and conquer this uncertainty while we doom scrolling and watching CNN and YouTube that makes everything so scary. So my practice is don't engage with the news, engage minimally with what's going on out there, spend as much time in the process of reimagining, anchor your points into the filters of that reimagination and sequence it backwards. Hope you got that, but it's something I'm practicing and something I'm doing. So I hope you a lot of wealth in your reimagination of the possible. Ciao.